Be strong.
A hat appears from the snow on the ground. Then a toy nutcracker's body pops out with a bow in hand. Yoojin uses a potion on his brother's arm while he looks out at the sudden appearance of that toy. He uses his promising sprout skill and is confounded when he finds out it is called a toy soldier number 6 with an S rank. There is also information about a contractor, but the details under it are blurred out. Wait, so aside from elementals, other things can be contracted. I wonder if our MC can overwrite those contracts. Yoojin tells his brother that the toy is an S rank, seeing that it is called number 6. Yoojin deduces there are others, meaning it could be 5 or more. And as he expected, other toy soldiers start appearing, completely surrounding the 3 of them. This turn of events worries Yoojin that he can't help but curse out at the system for their current predicament. Why is it that every time our MC enters the dungeon, something ominous is bound to happen? Surrounded by S-rank toy soldiers, Yoojin felt like they were being played with a sick joke by the system. Yoojin immediately covers for his brother, repeating those same lines to get out of there, and he will somehow handle things. Lil bro, you are always quick to make your brother retreat. Yoojin, of course, does not agree with this, calling his brother crazy for even suggesting such a thing. He asks how Yoojin intends to deal with those on his own, but the toy soldiers charged at them before Yoojin could even answer or think up a plan. Halt! Somebody yelled at the toy soldiers to a stop, making each nutcracker stop in their tracks. The brothers are both surprised. Yoojin puts out a hand holding onto a Shayla's bead while the other hand is on Yoojin's face. That looks awkward, but I guess is his way of trying to hold his brother back. A huge blue striped box appears out of nowhere, and just like before, a voice yells for everyone to return. The toy soldiers were suddenly sucked back into the box. Once everything is in the box, a glowing red volleyball pops out from it, commenting that Honey must have been scared. That red volleyball head used to be pixelated from chapter 53, so I guess the area changed because of the system and not some cult Yoojin was wary of. Does this also mean that those toy soldiers are contracted to this volleyball? The glowing red volleyball floats into the air while Yoojin has an arm up to cover his brother. The volleyball apologizes, saying he did not know the toys would attack Honey's brother. Yoojin finally realizes that this volleyball before them is one of those who are controlling the system. The volleyball winks at Yoojin and urges him to be called Newbie instead. We finally have a name to call one of them, even though it is only an alias. Still, it is better than calling him Volleyball. Yoojin does not appreciate the wink and scolds Newbie by bouncing it on the ground numerous times and ranting about how Yoojin's arm got a hole because of the toys. Newbie gets dizzy as it cries out. To defend himself, he says that Honey's brother was also at fault. Yoojin stops the bouncing and holds the ball between his hands. He asks what did his brother even do as he looks at Yoojin in peace. Only then did Yoojin realize that Yoojin is not reacting beside him because he and Peace are trapped in some sort of bubble. Yoojin is surprised by this, and the two try their best to get out of it. This system is always separating these siblings. Newbie explains that he just blocked them since they are forbidden to hear their conversation. Newbie adds that the place they are in right now was explicitly made for Honey, and he can't allow it to have it burnt to a crisp like last time. Yoojin looks at the place and then at his brother. Yoojin signals to Yoojin that it is okay. Unable to do anything, Yoojin has no choice but to stay put. Yoojin remembers that the last place only got burned down since he suddenly disappeared right in front of Yoojin. I agree with our MC, it was undoubtedly the system's fault that it happened in the first place. Newbie apologizes again for attacking Honey's brother and explains that it happened because Honey's brother is involved with them, who shall not be named. This revelation surprises Yoojin, and he asks Newbie if this is the same as those things that his brother mentioned to be a cult of sorts. Newbie says he can't really tell Honey about this. Yoojin then asks if those guys are dangerous and if his brother will be okay. Newbie reassures Honey that those guys will not be able to do anything to Honey or his brother since resorting to direct force or intervention is against the rules. But Yoojin does not buy it and pulls on Newbie, saying that those guys can just break the rules he speaks of. True, this system lacks common sense. Newbie is about to reply, but there is a sudden rumbling from the distance. Yoojin looks around while Newbie reminds him that talking about those guys is dangerous, so Honey can't ask any more questions about them. This puts Yoojin in a serious mood as he thinks about how those who are after him and his brother are the same as the group that the system is against. Yoojin wonders if they can even fight them when even this volleyball is obviously strong. He mulls over the fact that his brother somehow got himself involved with those said enemies. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I can't help agreeing with Lil Bro. Big Bro really should not place his trust in the system. As if hearing Yoojin's thoughts, Newbie smiles as he assures Honey that things will be okay as long as he and this system are together. Newbie explains that Honey's safety is essential for the system. He then reminds Honey they are short on time and asks if he has other questions. Yoojin thinks about it and then asks about Chirpy. Newbie checks it out, but after a short pause, he claims he can't look at him and asks if Honey managed to influence this Chirpy. This question confuses Yoojin, saying that he is sure that the keyword worked somehow. Our MC forgot that he only assumed that it worked, but there were no notifications that it did. Newbie finds it strange that he can't find anything about Chirpy and tells Honey to bring it with him next time. Yoojin asks if he will take a look at it by then, but Newbie replies that he will delete it, making Yoojin pissed off to the point that he throws the ball away. Yoojin shouts that he can't delete Chirpy when she's obviously alive. Newbie bounces back to where Yoojin is and says it is only natural to do so, if it is a problem. Yoojin is exasperated at this, thinking that these guys in the system are a bunch of psychopaths. I must agree with our MC here. They are very much sus in my opinion. Yoojin wonders if he can trust the system since every time he receives answers from them, he can't help but be more anxious. They even attacked his precious brother, and now it acts as if the talk of deleting Chirpy is nothing serious. This situation reminds Yoojin of a story he read when he was young. The story is about a supreme being with a goal yet lacking human empathy. And this supreme being would grant the wishes of humans, but it would do so in a distorted way. Yoojin thinks the system is the same as this supreme being in the story. He recalls how he got previously scammed with the wishing stone. He wonders if the system was able to correctly grant him his wish. This thought makes Yoojin pause with horror, and he decides to ask one more thing. I feel bad about where his thoughts are going. Newbie looks up at him expectantly, as Yoojin thinks about how the current results are better than he hoped. Unlike the story of the Supreme Being, Yoojin can say that things are even better in the present. But even though he thinks positively, Yoojin feels a sense of dread, but he knows he must ask. Yoojin asks about the change in the reward from an S-grade dungeon that he was sure of from his past life, and asks if this is just something that happened or if the fact that he turned back time has affected it somehow. Newbie asks if the item is consumable, then adds that if it is, it would explain why the change occurred. This answer confuses Yoojin, and he says that he did turn back time. He confirms with Newbie if this means that the item is technically unused. Newbie quickly negates this, saying Honey must not have known about it. He explains that Honey turning back time does not mean that the things that happened in his previous life never happened, and we have gotten ourselves into a regression conundrum. The answer confuses Yoojin, but when he finally understands it somehow, his face darkens. Newbie once again explains more straightforwardly that what happened is similar to overwriting an existing date. He explains that the 5 years Honey lived before never disappeared. Instead, it was simply overwritten. Newbie compares it to water being transferred to a similar jug. He adds that in the case of the beings in Honey's world, most are identical. Hence what the system did was combine them. With Honey being the regressor, he has overwritten the information of those 5 years with his current life. The same goes for the others since they can also overwrite their original future. But unlike Yoojin, those people are unaware they have been combined with the old data. If you focus on them, Yoonjae looks the same in the reflection of his original life. At the same time, the changes in Yerim, Hyuna, and others are obviously different. Newbie adds that some exceptions will feel that something is different. In the case of these sensitives, I think it might come as a déjà vu or a premonition. But it is also possible that someone can remember their past life like our MC does. Getting back to the story, Newbie says everyone will have data of their original future self. Still, there are exceptions to this, the used items and dead people. He explains that these are already excluded even before time was turned back and will be considered deleted information that has been cut out from Honey's world. Yoojin slumps to the ground upon hearing this. At the same time, Newbie continues to explain that the data of the dead can't be combined with the current living. Snow falls around Yoojin as he tries to understand everything and summarizes them. He looks down as he says things that happened in the original timeline are not undone or reversed. Instead, they are cut out or deleted. Newbie confirms that these things will vanish. This only makes Yoojin desolate as he thinks about Yoon, who died that day. He mulls over the fact that his 25-year-old brother of that time suffered 8 years on his own, who died to protect him and will still have to bear all those things on his own. Yoojin imagined that this brother of his would still be lying dead in the dungeon where Yoojin had left him, all alone and not part of his current world. That would be such a crappy turn of events. We want a happy ending for these brothers, even for the original Yoon. Newbie is unaware of the things running through Honey's mind and continues to explain that the reward Yoojin is asking about must have already been used. so it does not exist now in his current world. Yoojin does not care for the rewards and is more concerned with other things. He stands up and tells Newbie to let him out. Yoojin approaches his brother, who is still trapped in the bubble with peace, and angrily asks the system why they would separate him from his brother without saying anything. He commands Newbie to let his brother out immediately and says that Yoojin should not have been left alone in such a place. Yoojin pertains to both the bubble and the dungeon where Yoojin died, but Newbie does not get this. Newbie immediately complies and releases the bubble, saying their time is almost up. Yoojin and Peace were finally released, and Yoojin quickly approached his brother. Newbie cheerfully bids Honey goodbye, thinking that nothing went wrong with this visit. He then instructs Honey to knock on the gate 3 times, so that he can enter this space again. Yoojin ignores Newbie even as it disappears. Once Newbie is gone, Yoojin apologizes to Yoojin, saying it must have been cold for him. Yoojin is confused by how Yoojin is acting and says that, as an S-ranker, he is fine. If you guys and gals are sensitive, do not hesitate to use your tissues or hanky. God knows I did when I first read this. Yoojin can tell that something is wrong with his brother and asks him, but Yoojin simply caresses his brother's face and once again says he is sorry. Yoojin hugs his brother tightly as he continues to apologize to him. Yoojin is filled with somber thoughts, thinking that he should not have been so quick in choosing to turn back time. Instead, he should have begged the system to bring his brother back with the wishing stone. Yoojin recalls how Yoojin entered the dungeon just to save him, and in turn, Yoojin died protecting him. Yoojin wonders if the original Yoojin has already disappeared from the point of view of the beings outside of their world, but what Yoojin fears the most is that his brother is left all alone, abandoned. Boots lie askew on the floor, the same with bags, a jacket, and a phone. Yoojin lies on the floor near the entrance hall, filled with thoughts of how he left his dead little brother. His eyelids are sore from crying as he recalls his brother, who sacrificed himself and endured the last 8 years of his life to protect an ignorant older brother. And that brother died and was left all alone in a dungeon. My heart is breaking seeing big bro like this. Yoojin honestly thought that turning back time would mean that his previous life wouldn't count as real. Peace whimpers as he approaches Yoojin, trying to provide comfort. Yoojin slowly lifts a hand to Peace and sits up. He smiles at Peace with tears on his face, reassuring the magic beast that he is fine. Yoojin hugs Peace as he thinks he should pick himself up and be okay. We all need this kind of peace in our life. Even though Yoojin is shocked by learning the truth, he chooses to focus on the present. He thinks about the suspicious group that his brother got involved with. While his brother is dead, those guys are undoubtedly still alive, and they are strong enough that even the system is careful around that group. Yoojin asked Yoojin after they left the dungeon, but his little brother kept dodging his questions. Yoojin recalls some of Yoojin's memories that he got from Final Thanks. Yoojin concludes that aside from his brother, there is only one other person who is aware of them. Yoojin contacts someone on his phone while hugging Peace in his arms. The person on the other side of the call expresses his surprise at receiving a call from Yoojin since Yoojin isn't the type who would reach out to him. I'm sure we all know who Big Bro just called. Yoojin ignores the quip and gets right to the point. He asks if he knows a cult similar to Confucianism. The person on the other end of the line smiles as he claims that Yoojin will get mad if he answers Yoojin's question. Yoojin thinks about how Yoonjae had always been suspicious, even before Yoojin turned back time. Yoonjae's response just confirms Yoojin's hunch that the Sejong Guildmaster would know about this matter. Yoojin says that he will be the one who will get mad if Yoonjae doesn't answer his question. He then asks Yoonjae which of the two is better. Yoonjae looks down and confirms that Yoojin is more dangerous if he gets mad. Wow, our Sejong Guildmaster is whipped. Yoonjae says he can't tell Yoojin, but he can still show it to him. He instructs Yoojin to prepare a bracelet and his attack skill buff. Yoojin nonchalantly asks what will happen once everything is ready. Yoonjae says they'll go to a high-tier dungeon to do some fishing. The next day, Yoojin looks at his brother, who just announced his plans to enter an A-rank dungeon. Yoojin scratches his head, saying he is interested in the ruins inside the gates. He adds how Yoonjae knows one with the fortress walls still standing. Yoojin stares at his brother and says he should let him accompany him. Yoojin smiles brightly at his brother, claiming they're just going out for something similar to a picnic. A picnic date with Yoonjae this time. Yoojin remembers Yoonjae's reminder to reject his brother if he asks to accompany them since the fish won't bite if the bait is someone strong like Yoojin. Yoojin doesn't really understand what Yoonjae means by what he said, but he chooses to listen. So to reassure his brother, Yoojin claims that no one will be coming with them. Yoojin adds that he will be completely safe as long as he sticks close to Noah since he has his resistance skills, the Shiloh's beads, and the system will surely watch out for him. Yeah, Big Bro can simply let Noah unleash his poison if Yoonjae pulls something, and Big Bro won't even get hurt in the process. Still skeptical, Yubyun says that it might be a trap. Yoojin says putting that much effort in setting up a trap will be wasted on an F-ranker like him. He adds that the dungeon they will go to actually belongs to Sudam Guild. Yoon is a bit surprised by this and mulls over it. Yoojin says that the Sijang Guild wouldn't dare make a trap in another guild's dungeon. Yoon continues thinking about it, but then he agrees with his brother's statement. Sudam is another guild with an S-class for a guild master, Kyungsu Yoon. But unlike the others, Yoojin hasn't met anyone from this guild since they never reach out to Yoojin, even when all the other S-rankers personally went out of their way to meet him. A man glares as he introduces himself as the Kyungsu Yoon of the Sudam Guild. Yoojin casually reaches out a hand to the other man and tells him how he really wanted to meet him. Kyungsu profusely refuses the handshake, claiming that he might accidentally hurt him. That reaction is new. He's kinda sus. Kyungsu says they will only be lending the dungeon to them, so whether they choose to enter or not is up to them. He then spits on the floor and tells Yoojin that he should let his brother know that he didn't even touch him, so he really should stop the nagging. Yoojin looks back at the Sudam Guild, commenting on how the Sudam Guild master must be vigilant. Yoonjae says it is more like hate than vigilance. Yoojin is surprised by this and asks Yoonjae why they are heading to Sudam's dungeon if that is the case. Yoonjae says they are going there for that exact reason since the Sudam Guild would undoubtedly use this chance to attack. Oh, so choosing this dungeon was intentional. Yoojin is a bit worried about Yoonjae's plan. Still, Yoonjae says that the Sudam Guild might have gotten the extra support just to ensure they are on the winning side. Yoonjae smiles, claiming that the one they are luring out is that support. Instead of getting assurance, Yoojin only pales at how they are purposely poking at a hornet's nest. He resolves himself to stay alert the whole time they're inside the dungeon. But like a guy who doesn't care about a fig, Yoonjae hands a huge picnic basket to Yoojin. The Sishin Guildmaster says he also brought a cake and he will do his best as a tour guide. He adds that this will be a fun experience. If we ignore the fact that they're going into a dungeon, Noah's presence, and the chance of an attack from the Sudam Guild, this would be a date, right? Yoojin looks at Yoonjae, thinking he will remain safe with Yoonjae no matter who attacks them. On the other side of the world, people are rallying outside the Mexico Hunter Association about dungeon safety measures for the countryside. The people are clamoring for the association to not side with the high-class hunter emigration since there are only 2 S-rankers in their capital. Inside the association, a person is filing a complaint to the Korean Hunters Association. The person wearing a sombrero and poncho is none other than Ryit. She looks down at the association staff, who are saying that this kind of thing is out of their hands and the chaos outside makes it more difficult to handle. Ryit wants to have this resolved immediately and suggests having her document sneaked in during this situation. Ryit's the type who has no qualms about breaking laws and policies. The staff can't promise anything and says the best he can do at the moment is to have this matter reported to the higher-ups. But before he can finish his sentence, a big blast from outside burns him to a crisp. Ryit manages to avoid the explosion just fine, indifferent to the death before her. She asks what happened, and people wearing red bandanas and masks appear riding a reinforced fire truck. They claim punishment for the association because of their belief that dungeon breaks are God's will. The association staff who managed to survive the explosion raise their weapon against the terrorists attacking the association. Ryit looks at her poncho with dismay and throws it at the other guy she complained to earlier. She tells him to watch closely since she will take care of this situation for them. But in exchange, she wants to be sent to Korea. She shouts for the staff to get out of her way and jumps in the middle of the fight. The impact of her landing crushes the ground, but the terrorist only complains of her interference. Ryit ignores him and announces to everyone to do their best to dodge, since she will attack even if they happen to be an ally. Typical Ryit. Ryit activates a skill called Eternity's Severance and cuts everyone up before they even realize what's happening. Ryit stands still, enjoying the screams, chaos, and the shower she just created. She smiles, announcing that things have been taken care of and is about to ask for her reward. But she stops short when a voice calls for her. She looks back and one of the fallen heads speaks up about the contract. She doesn't let it finish and asks why he's appearing now when she has already clarified that she and her brother won't get involved. Like zombies, the dead bodies rise up, calling for her to once again accept the contract with an unknown being. Oof. The info is filtered, so we can't know who the voice is talking about. Irritated, Ryit threatens them. The voice calls Ryit by her title, making her shake and bend her knees. having her niece do this on their own surprised Ryit. Whoa, can they do that even though she refused the contract? The voice calls her, commanding her to obey. The voice urges her to kill Yoonjae's son and bring Yoo-Yoon Hun's brother to them. Not taking a single liking to the action of getting forced, Ryit musters up her power to stand and slash the enemies before her. Ryit struggles to remain standing despite the headache and claims that she can't even go to Korea even though she wants to. Another voice speaks up, saying he could help her with that problem. Ryit looks back and identifies the other person as Sukwon Choi, the guild master of the MKC guild. Why am I not even surprised that this guy is involved? Sukwon claims he has prepared a private jet since he was instructed by the same voice Ryit spoke to earlier. Inside the A-rank dungeon of the Sudum Guild, the sun shines high up in the sky over the picturesque landscape. But if you look down below, there are carcasses of monsters that were poisoned to their deaths. Noah flies above in his complete dragon form, confirming they've eliminated all the monsters near that area. He looks over at Yoonjae and Yoojin, wondering if leaving Yoojin alone with that man was the right choice. He knows that Yoojin assured him that they'll just talk, but this can't stop Noah from worrying. Yoonjae and Yoojin look over the lake, and Yoonjae goes into tour guide mode, spouting random details about the lake. With a bored look, Yoojin eats a sandwich from the picnic basket they brought and asks if Yoonjae really measured the lake to give those details. Knowing that he can't fool Yoojin, he comes clean by saying he made it all up. This makes Yoojin comment that Yoonjae is more of a fraud for claiming to be the tour guide. He adds that if he can connect to customer service, he'll have Yoonjae fired for doing an awful job. Getting playful, Yoonjae acts like a personnel of the Sejong Guild's customer service who answers the call from Yoojin. This clown act can't stop Yoojin from cringing with disbelief at this kind of conversation he's having with the Sejong Guild master, who's known as the strongest person in the world. This just shows how much Big Bro and Yoonjae have grown close, though our MC detests the idea. Yoojin ignores the act and gets to the point by asking if Sudum will really take a bite from their bait. Yoonjae says they will find out once the gate closes and adds that having Yoojin as the bait means that they can take revenge against the Heian Guild. Yoojin takes out more food from the picnic basket and asks Yoonjae what happened between the Sudum Guild and Yoo-Yoon. Now, it really looks like they are in the dungeon for a picnic. Yoonjae explains that around the time Yoo-Yoon awakened, Kyung-soo picked a fight with Yoo-Yoon, completely belittling him, and Kyung-soo suffered the consequences of his action. Yoonjae chuckles as he remembers how an S-class got hospitalized, but Yoojin remains indifferent, saying that it's Kyung-soo's fault. We have another typical doting brother reaction from Big Bro. Yoonjae finds Yoojin's response amusing and continues. He tells Yoojin how Yoo-Yoon acted like he was out for blood whenever he met Kyung-soo, so the other guy was left with no choice but to make himself invisible. Yoonjae adds that this is why Sudum wasn't able to grow either. Ever since that incident, Sudum never bared their teeth against Yoo-Yoon and his guild, and Yoonjae believes this is why Yoo-Yoon agreed to let Yoojin go with him. Yoonjae then looks at the pocket watch and says it would be a different story if they were getting support from them. Fun fact, the pocket watch is a dungeon byproduct from Vacheron's Hunter collection, which is only up to 9 products. This is literally a flex of how rich Yoonjae is since devices like this can't be used inside the dungeon unless it is a product made from materials found in the dungeon. Yoojin looks at Yoonjae while thinking this must be why he is being used as bait. He ponders how Yoonjae must be more deeply connected with the cult than his brother, and he is still unsure if he can fully trust Yoonjae not to betray him. As if hearing the doubt from Yoojin himself, Yoonjae confesses how those guys also want to get rid of him. This startles Yoojin, and he admits that he thought Yoonjae was siding with those guys. Yoonjae thoughtfully thinks about it and reveals that he does have a contract with them. He was planning to get some information from them before bouncing out. Still, those guys quickly caught a whiff of his intention and changed how they interacted with him. Yoonjae says that this happened around the time Yoojin made up with Yoo-Yoon, making Yoojin conclude that this happened because he turned back time for their world. Yoojin recalls his past life when Yoonjae probably did betray those guys. Only those within their world are affected by him turning the time back. Those outside would remember what transpired before, which is why those guys from the cult chose to abandon Yoonjae this time. This is one of those unfortunate effects of our MC's choice. Yoonjae smiles softly as he looks at Yoojin and says they are both tempting as bait. He then asks if Yoojin thought that Yoonjae was on their side. Seeing Yoonjae's usual smile, Yoojin can't help but be honest about his suspicions. Yoonjae curiously looks at him since Yoojin decided to come with him despite his doubts. From above, Noah tells Yoojin that some people are approaching them, and they are the hunters from the Sudum Guild, their guild master, and the guild master of MKC Guild. Fools, they really took the bait. Yoojin brings out his golden chains, claiming that stopping by merchants is not part of the guided tour. He then mocks the two S-rankers, but Kyungsoo only tells him to come down and face them. Yoojin felt underestimated, but there's no hope for these two guild masters, who are overconfident and clueless. Kyungsoo pulls out a blue orb and uses it. With a flash of bright light, Yoonjae's electric attribute skills are now useless, making the chains lackluster. Yoonjae looks at his chains, explaining that they use an attribute sealing item, and admits that he hadn't expected this. Kyungsoo laughs at Yoonjae while Seokwon compliments him for the amazing item. Yoojin looks at Yoonjae and asks if he'll be fine and if Yoonjae wants him to share his ability to double the effect of attack skills. Yoonjae refuses and says he can take care of this much on his own. Feeling generous, Yoonjae asks if Yoojin wants to use the sensation-sharing skill instead, promising he will entertain him as his tour guide. And it will be specially meant just for Yoojin. Is this Yoonjae's gift for our MC this time? Yoonjae then jumps to where the other hunters are. The hunters prepare to attack, but they suddenly stop short when they felt immense pressure from Yoonjae. Kyungsoo snaps his guild members out of it and directs them to just do what they have practiced before. Regaining their composure, the hunters set up a barrier on themselves and provided maximum buffs to Seokwon. The MPC Guildmaster's attack power increased up to 45%, his dexterity up to 55%, and his stamina up to 45%. Meh. This is still nothing compared to our MC's attack buff. Feeling the overwhelming surge of power, Seokwon leaps and attacks Yoonjae, but the Sejeon Guildmaster easily avoids the attack. Seokwon grins, claiming it has been 10 years since they last fought. Yoonjae smiles back, saying that he remembers how he beat Seokwon. Seokwon continues to attack, saying they will find out what will happen this time. Yoonjae dodges all of Seokwon's attacks, causing a lot of explosions and smoke on the battlefield. Though far from the fighting, Yoojin can still feel the tremors of the fight, and Noah insists that Yoojin should ride him. Kyungsoo looks at the battle excitedly, confident that Yoonjae will die with just one hit. Dude, you're so wrong about that, but your overconfidence does amaze us. Kyungsoo believes that Yoonjae is running away from someone's attacks and can't fight back against the tremendous power that someone is showing. Noah flies up to the sky with Yoojin on his back. Noah asks if Yoonjae will be fine, and Yoojin assures him that he shouldn't worry since Yoonjae is only playing with someone right now. Yoojin can confidently say this since he is currently using his Stern Mother Hendril Sergeant skill on Yoonjae. Yoojin is amazed at what he experiences through Yoonjae's eyes. Using his skill, Yoojin can feel how someone will move, whether it is the direction or how he will attack. Yoonjae can sense all of those, making it easy for him to dodge all of the MPC Guildmaster's attacks. Realizing that all of his attacks are not connecting, someone starts to get frustrated. While Yoojin concludes that there's no way someone would win against Yoonjae with him having a skill like that. Golden eyes shine as Yoonjae looks down at his opponent. With Yoonjae's battle foresight, there is no doubt that this is why he is known as the strongest hunter. Oh, so making Yoojin aware of his special skill is Yoonjae's gift for Big Bro. Yoonjae continues to dodge someone's attacks. Using battle foresight proves too OP against close combat fighters. Yoojin calculates how Yoonjae's skill can be shared with everyone using his Stern Mother Hendril Sergeant skill, since he will be sharing senses. If applied to a group of S-rankers with magic beasts, it will be possible to clear any kind of dungeon. With these thoughts in mind, Yoojin can't help but admit that he wants it no matter what. By showing this skill, it's obvious that Yoonjae and Yoojin's feelings for each other's skills are now mutual. Still feeling confident, Kyungsoo commands the long-range hunters to join the attack. But the members hesitated because they might hit someone in the process. Someone is starting to get irritated with Yoonjae's dodging. Hence, Yoonjae decides to grant someone's wish and fights back. Though the chains are dull, Yoonjae uses them. Kyungsoo was planning to approach the fighting figures but was stopped by Yoonjae's chains. All of the support guild members that he brought with him were attacked by those chains. Yoonjae's skill applies not only to one target, but to everything or everyone around him. Even I want that skill now. Announcing that he's done playing around, Yoonjae prepares to punch someone with his knuckles covered in chains. At the same time, the buffs that someone received are now disappearing. Someone tries to catch the punch with his hands, but in the end, he is overpowered by Yoonjae's attack. The impact causes a big blast of explosion. As the smoke dissipates, someone lies on the ground face down with Yoonjae expressing his disappointment. Yoonjae looks at Kyungsoo, asking if this is all they have prepared for him. Kyungsoo's confidence deflated with what he witnessed. but he still had the gall to smirk, claiming it was not the end. Yoonjae gets startled and yells for Noah to watch out from behind him. Yoojin and Noah look behind and find Ryit. Ryit grabs Yoojin by his clothes, kicking her brother to the ground. Noah was surprised by the attack. While Yoojin hangs by Ryit's hands, the effects of his skill Rao Chita's Bane get activated, doubling all of his skill effects against the title holder of the Dio Valshisis. Kyungsoo rejoices at Ryit's arrival, while Yoonjae can only put into words his surprise. Yoojin pales and sweats as he asks about the circumstances of her appearance inside the dungeon. Ryit announces that she was tasked to slay the Sejong Guildmaster and take Yoojin Hun. Yoojin demands to know where he is being taken while Noah calls for his sister. Ryit ignores her brother's call and says someone will explain everything to Yoojin later. Yoojin looks at Ryit with curiosity and asks why she is calling him by his name instead of her usual nickname for him. Ryit usually calls our MC darling, honey, or babe. Realizing that Ryit is acting strange, he asks why she is teaming up with those lame guys from the Sudam Guild. Kyungsoo is offended, but Ryit says she agrees with Yoojin, making Kyungsoo frustrated. Though she agrees with Yoojin, Ryit says she must still take him as the kin of the venomous cursed dragon. The statement confirms Yoojin's suspicions that Ryit must have been brainwashed. Ryit was about to say more, but Noah chose to attack his sister at that moment. He bites on his sister's arm and tells Yoojin to run. Yoojin knows he can't run far since he's in F class, so he makes a snap decision and hugs Ryit tightly on the waist. Ryit asks what Yoojin is doing, but instead of getting an answer, Yoojin looks up at her with tears in his eyes. He pleads for Ryit to get it together and not do this since they are close friends. The siblings are both surprised by Yoojin's action, while the Sudam Guild is confused about what is happening. Big Bro is really unleashing all of his charms this time. Yoojin continues to plead, babbling some nonsense about their friendship, the sky, and Ryit's heart. Ryit throws off her brother, telling Yoojin to stop with his BS. Yoojin continues to cling to Ryit and prays hard for his skills to work on undoing the control on Ryit. As if his prayers were heard, a bright flash of light comes from them. Yoojin continues to cling, not realizing what happened. Ryit gently takes Yoojin's face in her hand. She smiles fondly at him and calls him using a pet name. She expresses her thanks for helping her clear her head. Yoojin asks if she's back to normal. Ryit talks sweetly, saying it is all because of him that she was able to get back. Yoojin breaks into a large smile and expresses his own relief and delight while Ryit holds him up and swings him around. Are they shooting a drama inside a dungeon? If they keep this up, they'll win the Best Actor and Actress awards. Noah is amazed to see that what Yoojin did worked on his sister, while Kyungsoo complains about her not following orders. Ryit hugs Yoojin to her chest and says she won't listen to those orders. Yoojin asks if Ryit is not on that side anymore. She reassures him that she isn't, but there's a catch. She starts licking Yoojin's face, saying she won't let this chance pass her. Ryit tells about her dream to become an evil dragon. And just like her brother, Ryit transforms into a dragon. But unlike Noah, Ryit's dragon form is more horrifying with its darker shade of skin, horns, and sharp teeth. Holding Yoojin in her dragon hand, she announces the kidnapping of a princess. No, you're not wrong. The princess here is our MC. Yoojin's face pales as he asks why her dragon appearance is so different when they were supposed to be twin dragons. Ignoring the comment, Ryit roars out loud, and Yoojin can't help but comment on the fancy narration. Kyungsoo and his guild members are confused at what is happening, while Yoojin smiles, claiming that he should have also brought some popcorn. Yoojin's fear resistance gets activated as Ryit instructs him to yell the princess line of asking his prince to save him. But before Yoojin can even do so, not that he will, Ryit heads to the castle and maniacally announces her intention to take the princess. She challenges everyone to go to the top of the tower if they want him back. Kyungsoo is still confused, while Noah can only call for the kidnapped princess. Yoonjae laughs, saying that this situation really did become a fairy tale. It's the complete package with a damsel in distress princess stuck in a tower, dragons, antagonists, and of course, the prince, which I'm guessing is Yoonjae. Before, dragons were only the stuff made out of fiction, with them being the finale of such adventurous stories. Different kinds of dragons became a reality when the gates appeared all over the world. So when Ryit became a dragon herself, she really wanted to become the type of dragon who takes and traps the princess in a tower. Yoojin palely expresses how fun Ryit's dream is as he is held by Ryit's dragon hand. They reach the tower, and inside, Yoojin sat on a bed, wondering how things turned out this way. Ryit poofs as she reverts back to her human form and asks Yoojin if the tower is comfortable. Yoojin panics, thinking that Ryit must be naked after her transformation. Ryit assures him that she is clothed, so he doesn't have to cover his eyes. Yoojin is confused about how it happened, and Ryit explains that she just applied the curse skill. In the novel, it is described that she applied it to her equipment. Exasperated, Yoojin tells her to tell that to her brother, but I doubt that it'll help since this Manhwa loves seeing Noah in his baby suit. Ryit sits beside him and expresses her delight in finally making her dream come true. Yoojin is depressed about becoming the princess in her story, but he still congratulates her for achieving it. Still feeling like she needs to play, she asks what she should do next in a creepy way. Yoojin stops her, saying they must wait for someone to rescue him. He looks out the window where explosions are currently ongoing. He asks Ryit if she also contracted with that weird cult. Ryit shakes her head, saying she doesn't have it. Her answer confuses Yoojin since it was obvious from earlier that Ryit must follow the orders. Ryit admits this also confuses her since she was sure she had rejected that contract. She probably made a contract in Yoojin's past life, or it could be an effect of her title as the twin of Dio Valchisis. Ryit tells how she was approached right when she got awakened, but she rejected them right from the get-go. Acting cute, she says that the offer is lame and she might have accepted it if the proposal involves a fight where the loser must become the subordinate of the other. She shares that she kept rejecting them, and it even came to the point where they tried to use her brother against her. Yoojin asks if they used Noah as a hostage because he's weak. Ryit confesses that happened, but they stopped once she beat them up every time. Is this one of the reasons she made sure Noah becomes stronger? She then says that they recently contacted her again while calling her the firstborn of the venomous curse dragon Dio Valchisis and gave her orders. Ever since, she seems to be following those commands. Yoojin asks if the one who commands her can control venomous cursed dragons, and Ryit somewhat agrees. She has the possibility that the one ordering her must also be a venomous cursed dragon since she feels the same ambience from them, similar to Yoojin's. Yoojin mulls over her words, thinking that Ryit managed to break free from the orders. It's as Yoojin's curse resistance ability has a double effect against venomous curse types with the help of his other skill, Rao Chita's Bane. He's relieved that it somehow worked when he tried. Lost in his thoughts, Ryit pushes Yoojin down on the bed, claiming she knows how special Yoojin is. Trapped between her and the bed, Yoojin looks away and tells her to get off. Dang, we're finally getting part 2 of this scene from chapters 57 and 58. Ryit looks fondly at Yoojin, saying she's just continuing from where they left off. Yoojin tries to stop Ryit, telling her to revert to her dragon form and simply hang outside the tower. But Ryit has lost it, asking if Yoojin prefers her dragon form. Yoojin immediately denies this and yells for someone to save him. As expected, a hand grabs onto the window frame, announcing his arrival to save Yoojin, the princess. Yoonjae arrives smiling, with Noah flying right outside. Ryit looks at them, disappointed that the princes of the story arrived just in time. If there are 2 princes, does that mean the next installation of the story is a fight between the 2 to win the hand of Princess Yoojin? Yoojin's soul is relieved at their arrival. Still, the innocent dragon covers his eyes upon seeing his sister in an awkward position with the princess. Yoonjae can't help but ask if the story is supposed to be 18+, but Yoojin just cuts him off, asking to be saved. Hearing the princess please, Yoonjae pulls out his chains, which are now back with their golden hue. Yoojin, still worried about how things will turn out, denies his role as a princess. Ryit asks if Yoonjae intends to use his skill against her. Yoonjae gives her a smile, announcing how he dealt with the side dish, so it is only natural to have the main dish next. Ryit holds Yoojin down on the bed with one hand. With the prince's arrival, she announces her intention to play as she takes an item out of her inventory and leaps to where Yoonjae is. Yoojin complains about how these unruly S-classes are fighting again, and now they are doing it within the castle. Yoojin tries to warn them, but his words fall on deaf ears, and the place gets destroyed, making our MC fall off the tower. Good thing Noah catches him in time. I bet it's one of those S-class things that make them want to fight with those of the same rank, so this is nothing serious. With those 2 natural-born S-rankers unleashing their full power, there is no doubt they won't be able to stop them. Noah reassures Yoojin that those 2 are only having some fun, and it would have been worse if those 2 fought while his sister was still not herself. Yoojin can only agree, and he is relieved that the opponent who controlled Ryit was another venomous cursed dragon. Yoojin suddenly pauses, wondering if things really happened by chance. Yoojin recalls meeting Inky, the C-rank creek from chapter 37. dismissing that as a coincidence. But he knows for sure that the cult deals with venomous cursed dragons, while Dio Valshasys exists this time around. Yoojin can't help but think that the Rao Cheetahs that appeared in the D-grade dungeon before he turned back time has something to do with, oh. Did that dungeon incident from his past life happen because of those Confucianism guys? Yoojin ponders this and asks Noah for details on how they got the Dio Valshasys title. Yoojin can't shake the feeling that all of these are no mere coincidence. The castle is now in shambles, and only a few walls are left from their fight. The air is filled with poison as Riet drinks from a bottle. She expresses her euphoric feeling from this fight even though she never really landed a proper attack on Yoonjae. She calls out for Yoonjae, calling him Prince, wanting to know if her poison cloud worked on Yoonjae. Yoonjae watches Riet from afar while holding his arm. The smile on his face is gone as he looks at his poisoned hand. He is sure that an antidote is not enough to heal this. He ponders his next moves based on the current situation, deeming that his battle foresight can't help him in this situation. He knows that if Riet joins with other S-rankers, it will be dangerous for him. There is no doubt now in Yoonjae's mind that this ploy was meant to eliminate him. Yoonjae was lost in his thoughts, but his golden eyes suddenly grew bright. He looks up and finds the overlooming shadow of a dragon above him. Yoojin jumps from Noah, his own eyes glowing, and yells for Yoonjae to catch him. Our MC is using Stern Mother Hendril Sargent's skill here so that Yoonjae can catch him at the exact moment. Riet also looks back and sees Yoojin, but Yoonjae already dashes and catches Yoonjae in his arms. For Yoonjae, the big game changer is Yoojin Han's existence. Yoonjae looks at Yoojin and asks him what he is thinking, and decides to jump off. Yoojin doesn't reply and simply holds onto Yoonjae and activates his +1 and poison resistance skills. With a flash of light, the poison in Yoonjae's hand gets healed, and Yoonjae can't help but admire the effects of Yoojin's skill. Riet saw what happened and started complaining about how Yoonjae was cheating. Yoojin tells them to stop the play fight with a serious tone. Basing it all on what Yoojin has done so far in this dungeon, Yoonjae is sure that this F-ranker in front of him has foiled the plans of that guy who is out to get him. Yoojin looks at Yoonjae and asks if the dungeon information that gave Noah a title came from the cult. Yoonjae prolongs the moment by asking if fairy tale time is now over. Yoojin ignores the quip and outright tells him that the cult is trying to replace him with Riet. Yoojin explains how Riet rejected them, causing her brother to get involved. So the cult made use of the dungeon that has the Dio Valshasys title to take control of the siblings. Yoojin adds how these have all been planned from the start so that Yoonjae would be the source of this information, making him the root cause of his possible inexistence. Oof, the irony. Yoojin looks at Yoonjae, asking if he really doesn't know any of these. Yoonjae shakes his head, saying that he can't see the future. Yoojin is worried at how meticulously the cult is moving, and how they turn a normal dungeon into a perilous one only made him furious. This trick is no different, and Yoojin can't help clenching his teeth as he recalls how a normal D-grade dungeon turned dangerous with Rao Cheetah's appearance. Remembering how his brother came into the dungeon as if he already knows what happened only adds fuel to his anger. Unable to control his emotions, Yoojin grabs Yoonjae's clothes and demands to know everything about those good-for-nothings. He can only think about how his brother died back then. And with the current circumstances, Yoojin believes the cult is involved somehow. Noah watches over the two as they talk, wondering why Yoojin jumped. Suddenly, an arm hooks his dragon neck, and Riet greets her brother. She notices the worried look on her brother's face and says there's no need for him to be scared since she already forgave him. Noah gets exasperated at his sister's gall and says she should ask for forgiveness instead. He tells her to let go, for he'll go to Yoojin. Riet keeps her hold on her brother and tells him that he can't go to them right now since their conversation is very important. Yoojin continues to demand Yoonjae to tell him everything he knows about those guys and even proclaims that if he is under contract, then he will make sure to nullify it for him. That statement only confirms Yoonjae's suspicion that Yoojin also has a curse-resistant skill. Yoojin finally lets go of Yoonjae's clothes, expressing his surprise that Yoonjae even knows this. MC, you revealed it yourself just now. Yoonjae fixes his clothes, saying he knows Riet won't return without a good reason. Yoonjae adds that he thinks that the skill must be at least SSS rank or even an L rank. Yoojin glares at Yoonjae, thinking that this guy is too clever. In Yoonjae's defense, I want to say that you are acting quite obviously, MC. Yoojin mulls over the fact that he must find out everything he can about that cult, even if he has to show his cards to Yoonjae. He makes his decision, revealing that the skill is L rank, and is confident that he can break the contract for him. Yoojin admits that Yoojin's skill is amazing, but then he says it won't be enough. Yoojin is surprised by that, so Yoojin brings out the contract and shows it to him. Yoojin explains that the contract itself is also an L class. With the two having the same rank, Yoojin says that Yoojin's skill won't be able to nullify it. He adds that his right arm and right eye are at stake in this contract. Yoojin is enraged that Yoojin would agree to such a contract. Ryit and Noah continue to watch over the two of them as they discuss it. Yoojin claims he would be safe as long as he doesn't talk about them. Yoojin is worried that those guys might have offered his brother the same kind of contract. Refusing to give up, Yoojin reveals another skill of his that lets him double his skill effects against venomous cursed dragons. Yoojin says that Yoojin is truly impressive, but he questions whether this will be effective. Desperate to get some hard fact answers, Yoojin claims that he will take responsibility. He says he will do anything to pay him back as he gets close to the contract. But before he even does so, Yoojin grabs him by the neck. Noah wants to fly over, but Ryit stops him. Yoojin gets serious as he tells how much he likes Yoojin. That's right, people. This is a confession, albeit ruthless. Yoojin says that his like for Yoojin is not enough for him to risk his own body. A strong intimidation from Yoojin activated Yoojin's fear resistance. Yoojin talks back at Yoojin, saying that losing an arm and an eye won't put his life at risk. Yoojin knows that Yoojin is curious about him and that his value is more than what Yoojin even believes. As if to prove his point, Yoojin says that Yoojin only signed that contract because he doesn't want to be ignorant. Wanting Yoojin to risk all for him, Yoojin says that there are still a lot of things that he is hiding. He tells Yoojin that there are still a lot of things for him to discover and enjoy. Yoojin will let Yoojin use him, that is how desperate he is to know about those who killed his younger brother. Yoojin finally lets go of Yoojin, hoping that everything Yoojin told him is the truth. He shows the contract once again and claims that he is nervous since it's been a while since he last gambled. Yoojin asks if Yoojin permits it and wants to get over it by ripping the contract. That would be satisfying. Yoojin stops Yoojin short, reminding him that even if Yoojin succeeds, he should remember that Yoojin did risk his eye and arm for him. Not missing this chance, Yoojin announces that he looks forward to how Yoojin will repay this debt. Yoojin says he won't forget it, even though he's annoyed that he now owes Yoojin. The two got into position, with Yoojin placing one hand on the contract and another on Yoojin. The siblings watch over. Noah wonders if Yoojin will be okay, while his sister is excited to see an arm fly off if it fails. Yoojin then starts talking about some parents who want to end the world and children who wish for their parents' dreams to come true. Yoojin is a bit confused by what Yoojin is saying, but Yoojin only continues. He says that it is their goal and how he would describe those guys. He explains how they can't directly interfere with their world, so they resort to using contracts, dungeons, and items as baits to have the awakened do their bidding and influence the world. All of these are for the goal of destroying the world. Yoojin is surprised at Yoojin's revelation. He is confused as to why anyone would sign such a contract that leads to destruction. Yoojin says that the world is already on that road with all the new gates and stronger monsters that are appearing. Yoojin recalls how the system told him the same thing before, while Yoojin continues telling about how those guys told him they would help the contractee leave the dying world. That's sus. It is kinda similar to the system's plan for Chapter 55, of sneaking Myung-woo out when all things fail because of his ability. Yoojin watches as the contract reacts to Yoonjae's words. Yoonjae compares it to a lifeboat where they will save the contractees if they do what the other party wants. He summarizes it as a form of collecting subordinates to hurry the impending destruction, while simultaneously getting rid of the key that stops them. It is most likely that the key is our MC. The contract reacts more aggressively to Yoonjae's words, but Yoonjae is not yet done. He announces that what he just revealed is the goal of those who are called the filial piety addicts. Oh, so this is why Lil Bro mentioned Confucianism before in Chapter 75. Filial piety is one of the core teachings of Confucianism. Getting back to our story, the contract breaks into pieces with those last words from Yoonjae. The curse gets activated due to its violation. Simultaneously, Yoojin's curse resistance also activates. Like what Yoojin suspected, the skill effects of Rao Chita's Bane applied, doubling the effect of his curse resistance skill. The notification announces that the opponent is the venomous cursed Dragon King's master, but its name has been left out. Yoonjae looked at his arm, relieved that he didn't lose an arm and an eye in the process. He's about to say they have won, but stops when he sees the look on Yoojin's face. Yoojin glares, thinking that the venomous cursed Dragon King's master really did exist. The master of that lizard who slayed his brother. Yoojin asks Yoonjae if those filial piety addicts also took his brother as their subordinate. Yoonjae says that Yoon isn't exactly a subordinate since he cut contact with them. He adds how he wondered why Yoon didn't get himself involved much, but now that he thinks about it, Yoojin is the reason. Yoonjae says there is no way for Yoon would leave his older brother, who happens to be an F ranker. Yoonjae says that with Yoojin's physique and stamina, he wouldn't make it when the time comes to leave the world. He adds that only S rankers were contacted because of this reason, and Yoon might have broken off contact with them once he learned this. Yoonjae's probably right. There's no way Lil Bro would leave his big bro. And the same goes if Big Bro is in that situation. Yoonjae's words made sense to Yoojin. He recalls how much Yoon kept his distance from him and how Yoon revealed that he didn't want to burden his older brother, thinking that Yoojin might not understand. Yoojin can now say that his brother was really only thinking of him, and he made that choice considering everything. Yoonjae staked his eye and arm to form a contract with the filial piety addicts, and Ryit was threatened by them using her brother. In this case, you could say that Ryit made better choices than Yoonjae. As Yoojin thought of those, he knew that there was no way Yoon could take Yoojin, and even after cutting contact with them. Yoon knew that Yoojin might still be at risk, and if Yoon can't talk about the contract, then this only means. Yoojin's line of thought was interrupted when a lizard-like hand grabbed his leg from the ground. The hand inflicts injury on Yoojin's leg, and with a bright burst of explosive light, a lizard-like being climbs out of the ground. The humanoid dragon appears in its full form while still holding onto Yoojin's leg. The being looms over Yoojin, and Yoojin thinks this happened because of the broken contract. The humanoid dragon glares at Yoojin with intimidation. Ryit dashes to where Yoojin is telling her brother to stay back. She yells at the lizard to let go of Yoojin and attacks it. Still, the humanoid dragon instantly changes its location, confusing Ryit. The humanoid dragon doesn't stop there and attacks Ryit with its tail. Noah calls for Yoojin, but Yoojin shouts at him not to come near them. Yoojin gauges the situation as something that even a natural-born S-ranker can't handle. He uses the promising sprout skill on the enemy. He determines it to be a Tier 2 ancient dragon species of venom and curse named Vicus. It only has the possibility to awaken as an S-class, but it awakened as an SS class instead. Some of its skills are Dragon Scale and Molten City, which are both SS rank. Poof, something OP came out of the ground. Ryit complains about their current situation while Yoonjae can't come up with a way to fight back. He suddenly stops and looks at Yoojin, who is still held captive by the enemy. Yoojin determines that the enemy uses poison and curse. He wonders if this enemy before them was also sent by that lizard master. Resolved to defeat the enemy before him, Yoojin glares at the enemy with glowing golden eyes. Promising himself to do everything he can, Yoojin makes everyone accept the stern Mother Hendril Sargent skill. It is Ryit's first time to experience the skill. At the same time, Yoonjae thinks this skill won't be enough even if he uses battle foresight. But then Yoonjae sees Yoojin latch onto the enemy's leg, struggling to apply the same skill to their enemy. With this skill, he aims to make the other three see ancient dragons' movement and senses. Vicus denies the skill, making Yoojin suffer the effects of the rejection. Yoojin ignores the pain and uses it once more, applying the effects of Rao Chita's Bane to make the dragon accept his teaching skill. Vicus rejects the skill again, but Yoojin is hell-bent on making it possible. Yoojin uses it again on Vicus, and this time, it works. He tells everyone to go for it through their connection and urges them to destroy it. It sounds cliché, but our MC is the epitome of try and try until you succeed. The three of them charge at the same time. Ryit changes her hand into dragon form, and unlike before, she can now see how the enemy will attack. She unleashes multiple attacks. She knows that she can't win on her own, but with their joined forces, it is possible to stop their enemy. Ryit was about to be clawed by Vicus' hand, but she only smiled at it, claiming she didn't charge to win. Right at that moment, Yoonjae uses his chains on Vicus to stop his attacks. Ryit backs off and Yoonjae unleashes an electric attack on their enemy. Yoonjae's attack worked, but this was not enough to make Vicus fall. The ancient dragon glares at Yoonjae and swipes at him. Ryit uses this moment to approach Vicus back and slashes at the enemy's arm with her own dragon hands. The arm holding Yoojin falls off. The real aim is to free Yoojin from Vicus' claws. Yoojin gets thrown off from the battle, and three S-rankers are determined to unleash everything they have to defeat Vicus. Yeah, don't worry about our stick figure MC. I'm sure he's fine with the Shalos beads and all. Vicus dashes, aiming to where Yoojin is, but Ryit stops the ancient dragon in its tracks and tells it to focus on her since it has already lost a hand. But unlike her expectations, she gets slashed in the side with its newly regenerated hand. Ryit is surprised that instead of making a continuous attack, Vicus crouches down and charges up. It suddenly releases an attack similar to Poison Fog. Ryit is wary that she can't hold on for long with her poison resistance, but she gets another surprise when her poison state gets healed by Noah's healing hand. Her brother then directs her to only dodge the big attacks, for he will support her. Noah says he hasn't forgiven Ryit and is only helping her because of the current situation. Knowing that her brother got her back, she comments on how he matured. Really, Ryit, you should look at your brother properly and focus on his accomplishments. Yoonjae looks at them. Relieved they have more time with the siblings' help. He then asks if Yoojin has other injuries. Yoojin says it's only the legs since he used the damage nullifying beads on Vicus' other attacks. Yoonjae looks at the damage in Yoojin's leg, saying it must be treated since the bleeding won't stop. Yoojin asks for Yoonjae's help to take the claws out of his leg. Yoonjae asks about painkillers, but Yoojin says it won't work because of his poison resistance skills, which need to remain activated amidst the poison fog. Yoonjae hesitates since the claws are stuck deep and considers Yoojin's pain tolerance. Yoojin gets fed up and directs Yoonjae to pull it out and to just wake him up if he faints from the pain. Yoonjae does as he was told and pulls out the claws. Yoojin bites his sleeve while bearing the pain. Yoonjae pours potion onto Yoojin's leg as treatment, telling him to rest. He tells Yoojin to hide, but Yoojin refuses to do this. Yup, our MC is so stubborn. Yoojin intends to help them out by beating the crap out of that lizard. Yoojin brings out the Shalo's beads from his inventory, explaining how it works and saying there are still 17 minutes left in it. Yoojin speculates that Yoonjae can finish the enemy in 10 minutes or more. Yoonjae looked at Yoojin with wonder, thinking how this F-class in front of him had only recently awakened. Yet the way Yoojin decides and moves makes it seem like he has years of experience in dungeons, fighting multiple battles. Yoojin calls for Yoonjae's attention, saying he'll apply the doubling attack skill. Yoonjae listens, but he still can't help but be curious about everything Yoojin does. I know it's a serious scene, but Aichi here is giving off a different vibe with his curiosity. Yoojin and Yoonjae arrive on the battlefield, with Yoonjae holding onto Yoojin by the waist. Yoojin calls for Noah's attention, asking to borrow some mana stats. Noah is surprised that Yoojin is back on the battlefield and expresses his worry. Yoojin reassures Noah and then shares his skill with Yoonjae. Yoonjae admires the surge of power while Yoojin tells him that Yoonjae can use him as a shield aside from having his attack doubled. Yoojin says the sharing of skills will work even if they touch different areas of the body as long as they keep in contact with one another. So instead of being held by Yoonjae like before in chapter 64. Tisk, that was a fun scene though. Yoojin says he can just keep on touching him as long as they are not far apart while tapping on Yoonjae's shoulders to demonstrate. Yoonjae thinks about it for a second and asks if Yoojin can dance. Yoojin gets a bit confused at the sudden question. Still, Yoonjae explains how dancing is the best way to generate teamwork. Yoojin admits that he doesn't know about it. Noah activates stat rental and shares his mana stat, while Yoojin says that his life is not leisurely enough to let him learn to dance. Yoonjae says Yoojin can start learning now. With the stern mother Hendril Sergeant still activated, Ryit notices that everyone else is now ready. She leaps away from Vicus, and Yoonjae instantly uses his chains on the ancient dragon and releases electricity through his weapon. By the way, Yoonjae's chains are called Seeker's Chains. We'll continue calling it chains unless it requires to be called by its proper name. Ryit compliments the tremendous power release, while Yoonjae continues to admire how satisfying it is to release that much power in one blast. But unlike the two, Yoojin is surprised that the enemy is still standing despite the damage it received. Vicus speaks an unknown language and readies himself to charge at them. Yoojin panics, but Yoonjae holds his arm, saying he should relax. The prince then invites the princess for a dance. I guess the theme is still a fairy tale, but there was a change of villain. Yoojin looks at Yoonjae, confused. Vicus dashes towards them, but Yoonjae quickly pulls Yoojin away from the attack and makes a dancing pose. Vicus continues to attack them, but Yoonjae simply holds into Yoojin in different poses. There's the famous pose from Howl's Moving Castle, Lola Land, and the classic twirl move. Too bad they didn't use that renowned lift scene from Dirty Dancing. Ryit gets giddy by just watching them, wanting to try it out as well. Yoonjae takes a needle from his inventory while he and Yoojin continue to dance, evading the attack of Vicus. Yoonjae takes this chance to place needles on the lizard's back while explaining how electricity loses impact when released into the air. Yoonjae calmly does this while Yoojin can't help but panic and get dragged along. Right suddenly snaps her fingers, realizing what Yoonjae is planning. Yelling that she will help, Ryit leaps into the air above them and pulls out a sword from her inventory while in midair. She activates Eternity's Severance and stabs the sword on the enemy's shoulder. Noah is dubious that his sister's attack would work, but then realizes the plan is to concentrate the electricity. A little bit of science makes an attack more effective. Yoonjae floats in the air, surrounded by his chains and electricity, while keeping hold of a tired Yoojin. Ryit looks back as she lands, telling Yoonjae to burn the sword. Yoonjae pulls up Yoojin for a ballroom pose and unleashes electricity through his chains, directing it on Vicus. The impact of their attack creates a blast of light that shatters even the ground. Yoonjae and Yoojin gently land on the ground. Yoojin looks at the cooked lizard, wondering if it is finally over. Yoojin thinks the electricity released this time is weaker, but realizes it's not the case as he looks at the enemy. Vicus coughs up, making Yoojin conclude how the lightning was concentrated in one spot, making all the electricity go through the enemy. The ancient dragon suddenly roars, making Yoojin flinch. And with that last sound, Vicus faints on the spot. Ryit comes close and checks if the lizard is already dead. She asks Yoojin what skill they used, but the fallen dragon suddenly swipes its claws at Ryit. She manages to avoid the attack and leaps away. Noah is concerned for his sister, while Ryit expresses her disbelief at how the enemy can still get up. It seems like there will be more zombie-like scenes whenever the cult is involved. Yoonjae thinks it's moving through sheer willpower, but Yoojin believes otherwise. For Yoojin, it looks like the enemy before them is being forced to fulfill its order like a cursed puppet. Yoonjae releases another blast of electricity on the enemy, making it cough up more. Yoojin can only imagine how his brother got involved with such beings as the enemy crawls its way to them. Words come out of Vicus' mouth, but they can't understand what it is saying. Yoonjae asks if it is really okay to approach it, and Yoojin says it's fine since it can't get up anymore. Crouching in front of Vicus, he uses the stern mother Hendril Sargent to get a clue about its master. That's really one useful skill, since there are multiple ways that he can apply it. Purple ooze comes out of Vicus, and it engulfs Yoojin. Yoojin is surprised by what happened. He stares off into the darkness, calling for the others. The ground is filled with dark ooze with what looks like the remains of dragons. Yoojin stands up in shock and looks around. A voice suddenly speaks, saying how their consciousness overlapped at that moment. A being of 4 eyes and big wings sits atop the remains as if he is sitting on a throne, with the big dragon behind him. He expresses how nice of Yoojin to come on his own, but then claims that Yoojin is the reason why his plans are getting thwarted. The being then talks about Vicus, making Yoojin ask if this guy before him is the master of the venomous cursed dragon. Yoojin approaches the 4-eyed dude, asking if he sent Rao Chitaz to kill his younger brother. Instead of answering, the being lifts a finger, and a large clawed hand appears and subjugates Yoojin. Yoojin falls to the ground, and the being starts to speak about Yoojin's death. The 4-eyed dude approaches Yoojin and admits he didn't expect it to turn out that way. He didn't answer our MC's question, but based on the current circumstances, the 4-eyed dude is probably the one who's pulling the strings all this time. He takes hold of Yoojin's face while saying that it was supposed to be him who should have died at that time. The 4-eyed dude reveals how that dungeon was specifically created to slay Yoojin since he is the only reason why Yoojin won't cooperate with them. Yoojin asks what he means, and the 4-eyed dude tells him how Yoojin Hun chose death because Yoojin is alive. These words make Yoojin clench his hand into a fist. Looming over him, the being spites Yoojin by telling him how Yoojin would have survived if it wasn't for him. He says how Yoojin would become stronger if he had accepted the contract he offered. The being adds that Yoojin might even have the freedom to choose even if he didn't enter into a contract with him. He continues to guilt Yoojin by saying how Yoojin was tied down to a fragile burden like him and how he is nothing but an obstacle for his brother. He reminds Yoojin how Yoojin wouldn't have died if it wasn't for Yoojin, guilting Yoojin that he got in the way of his brother's life, and here he is, still alive. At those words, Yoojin recalls old memories of how people talked about how he got abandoned by his brother for being an F-class, how his brother reprimanded him, and that same brother's death. Yoojin confesses that he has no right to live as he holds onto the leg of the 4-eyed dude. Yoojin looks up at him, saying it is the exact reason why he's aiming to get revenge on the master of that lizard who killed his brother. And this is where our MC's redemption story turns into a revenge story. The 4-eyed dude mocks him for being an F-class who can't do anything, but Yoojin talks back at how this same F-ranker destroyed his plans twice already, Yoojin does the mocking this time, saying how a lizard turned into sushi while the other got cooked. The big dragon crushes Yoojin and throws him off, but this doesn't stop Yoojin from blabbering about how he should have brought those lizards' bodies just to show him. Despite the attacks Yoojin continuously receives from the dragon, he still sassily talks about how he can blame his class, yet the four-eyed dude can't even do the same. Yoojin laughs despite the bleeding. Based on what he just witnessed, the four-eyed dude has no plans to kill him. He takes advantage of this to infuriate the other by talking about how he got scammed by Yoonjae and how Ryit won't even join his side. Yoojin knows that the other needs something from him. That's why he continues to sass about how the enemy should be called a stupid king instead. As if recalling things from Yoojin's words, the four-eyed dude asks how Yoojin undo his commands. He grabs Yoojin by the hair and asks how he even defeated Rao Chitaz. He asks if the immoral people helped him. They're called immoral people in the novel translations. We're applying that here since it follows the context of Yoojin's next lines. Back to the story. Yoojin doesn't know who he is talking about, so the four-eyed dude told him that the immoral people created and managed the system. Yoojin laughs at the nickname and asks if they are called that because they want to stop the world from destruction, which is against the goal of the filial piety addicts. The four-eyed dude surmises that Yoojin knows them based on his reply. He then asks him why they would intervene on an F-ranker like him. From the guy's question, Yoojin now knows what kind of information the four-eyed dude wants, and it concerns Yoojin's title and skill. With this knowledge, Yoojin is sure that he won't be killed until that guy learns the answer. Realizing this, Yoojin gives him a finger, mocking him for expecting an answer. Yoojin chooses to look for an opportunity while stalling for time. Still, the dragon holding him suddenly bites his arm off, and Yoojin screams in pain. It's the four-eyed dude's turn to mock Yoojin. He tells him to look closely since his arm is still there. Yoojin looks, and just like the other guy said, his arm is where it is supposed to be. Yoojin is confused, but other dragons start biting him before he can even ask. As if reading Yoojin's thoughts, the other dude explains how they are inside his mind and not reality. What's with villains lately? They are outstanding when it comes to explaining how things work for the MC. The four-eyed dude says that since they are in his mind, he can use this to make Yoojin eternally suffer without really dying. Using his blood, he releases another dragon. He tells Yoojin that if he chooses not to answer, then he will just make him reveal it by looking at his memories. Yoojin tries to look for his Shayla's beads, but the other tells him that items can't be used in that space since it is not reality. The four-eyed dude then questions if those immoral people gave him those beads, and he thinks that Yoojin won't be able to defeat Rao Chitaz with just that. He urges Yoojin to answer while the newly summoned venomous cursed dragon aims for his head. Yoojin refuses and tells the other that he should figure it out on his own and cusses at him. With that, Yoojin gets devoured by the dragons, but since the place is not reality, Yoojin is still alive, and he can't help but think again just what kind of people his brother involved himself with. Outside, in reality, Yoonjae, Ryit, and Noah are looking at Yoojin's current state. Yoonjae says that Yoojin also passed out back then. Noah asks if Yoonjae did something to Yoojin and mentions how he heard about him taking Yoojin in the dungeon. Ryit says this is a problem since she also wants Yoojin for herself. Yoonjae brings out his chains while claiming how normal it is to have ants swarm around a candy. Noah tells them to stop, saying that this is not the right place or time for them to fight. He adds that they should also focus on clearing the dungeon, earning him a compliment from his sister. Yoonjae is quietly staring at Yoojin, and no one notices this. Yoonjae then asks if Yoojin has always looked that way. Noah and Ryit didn't understand his question, but Yoonjae kept on thinking about how Yoojin was supposed to look 5 years older than how he looked right now. Yoonjae is getting some sort of insight somehow. Back to where our MC's consciousness is, every piece of his memory is being dug out. Whether it is his first dungeon break, his brother going to a dungeon, his military service, fighting with others when Yoon is mentioned, him singing happy birthday for his brother despite their estranged relationship, getting injured, and his brother's death. The four-eyed dude finally discovers one of Yoojin's secrets, the Wish Stone. His enemy now understands how Yoojin turned back time and gained the curse-resistant skill for defeating Rao Chitaz. Yoojin is out of it, and he can't tell how long it has been since he got stuck there. But the four-eyed dude is still not yet done with him. He wants to satiate his curiosity about how Yoojin did it despite being an F-ranker, and it is taking him longer to extract information from Yoojin because of the curse resistance and how an ordinary Yoojin is for an F-ranker. Yoojin knows that in a short while, that guy will soon know everything. He is annoyed at his own inability despite having the mastermind behind his brother's death before him. He questions his own weakness, knowing that his brother kept things from him for this exact reason. Old memories come up with how Shimyung reprimanded him in his previous life for being someone unreliable. The four-eyed dude is getting fed up with Yoojin's unrelated memories. Yoojin struggles, knowing his own inability is the reason why he aimed to change. His desire to become a befitting older this time is what urged him on in this new life. Refusing to give up, he mocks the four-eyed dude while coming up with a way to get out of this mess. The four-eyed dude is busy looking at Yoojin's memories like the voyeur he is. Yoojin asks why skills weren't blocked like he did with the items, looking for any sort of clue with his questioning. Like the good villain our four-eyed dude is, he explains how skills are counted as part of the senses and even mockingly adds how an F-ranker's skills would be nothing after all. He explains how anything is possible when in consciousness. Still, he is so sure that humans are not creative enough to do anything. And this is where our villain made a big mistake. He continuously mocks Yoojin and steps on him. He admits his surprise at the advanced curse resistance and is about to say more. Yoojin ridicules the four-eyed dude's stupidity and nonsense talk, earning him another hit from the other. The enemy expresses his amazement at how Yoojin can still talk back. Yoojin is not yet done. He probes the truth of what happened back then by bringing it up. He states that the four-eyed dude should have only interfered right after the gate closed so that Yoojin wouldn't have followed him in. Yoojin stops, realizing something. The enemy further incites the horror of Yoojin's realization by smiling and laughing out loud. He then reveals how Yoojin borrowed his power to get inside a closed dungeon in order to save his older brother. The four-eyed dude smiles at Yoojin's reaction, saying they should talk more about Yoojin. Wrong move, dude. You just confirmed that you are the mastermind of everything. Here's a flashback of what happened back then. Yoojin asks why he's back when he has already declined the offer. Yoojin looks at a dead monster, who replies that he has important news for him. It adds how Yoojin would regret it if he didn't hear about it. The dead then reveals how an error occurred in the dungeon that Yoojin's brother entered. Hearing this news, Yoojin immediately went to the gate his brother entered and asked about the situation. The staff explained how it was supposed to be a D-grade dungeon, but based on their latest findings, there's an S-class monster inside. Horror fills Yoojin's face. He pulls out a weapon, but someone tries to snap him out of it, saying the dungeon is already closed. Yoojin pays no heed and slashes at the gate. The staff tells him to stop since it's useless. He reminds Yoojin that it can only open up once again once every hunter inside it dies. Yoojin refuses to listen and continues to slash at the gate, worried for his older brother. A voice asks Yoojin if he wants to be let in, and a purple-black goo comes out of the ground nearby and shows Yoojin what is happening inside. The voice tells him that he can help Yoojin get in, but in exchange, Yoojin must become his subordinate. Back to the present, the four-eyed dude retells how Yoojin didn't even hesitate to accept his offer and how Yoojin thought it was just a dungeon error. He then reveals how everything that happened back then, even the appearance of Rauchitaz, was all part of his plan. Dang, so this guy really was the instigator of what happened back then. The four-eyed dude explains how he made things tough enough so that Yoojin won't be able to save his brother. At the same time, it won't be life-threatening for Yoojin. He admits that he planned for Yoojin to die in that situation, making Yoojin more gullible to manipulation. So when Yoojin sacrificed himself, it was a complete blunder in his plans. Yoojin's thoughts were once more filled with how Yoojin got caught in a trap because of him and how Yoojin didn't hesitate, even though he clearly knew he'll be a pawn to the musings of these other beings. The four-eyed dude smirks, saying how he finally has Yoojin, though now as a corpse. This remark gets Yoojin's attention, and he asked about it. Like the good villain he is, he entertains Yoojin's question and explains how he can deal with a corpse, depending on the nature of the contract. He adds that it was easier to get his body since Yoojin was cut out from his world. Yoojin is startled by this news since he honestly thought that his brother was forever lost, and it is the reason why he chose to focus on the present. With this news, everything changes for Yoojin. Wait, that means Big Bro can still somehow save Lil Bro. To spite Yoojin more, the four-eyed dude declares that he has Yoojin's body, but then he corrects himself, saying that someone else took it. Yoojin keeps thinking about Yoojin, filled with sorrow and anger. Seeing this kind of expression on Yoojin's face, the four-eyed dude once again tells Yoojin to answer his questions. In exchange, he will tell more about Yoojin. Yoojin refuses to hear more, shocking the other not only with his words but also with what happens next. With a sudden glow of light, electricity ran to the dragons, making them shriek in pain. The four-eyed dude gets surprised to see this attribute in Yoojin. Yoojin recalls how the other explained that skills are part of the senses, and it's why they can still exist in that space. Yoojin continues to unleash lightning, as he admits that he is not creative. He adds that it is a different matter if it is a skill that he has experienced before. Our MC recalls how Yoonjae uses the attribute and chose to use this ability first. Yoojin lifts a finger as he says that it is not the first time he experienced this. He then releases electricity shocks on the dragons, making them scream more. The four-eyed dude leers at him, claiming that this is nothing but tricks and that human skill is still nothing. And with that, he releases more dragons against Yoojin. Having no intention to lose, Yoojin releases wings similar to Noah's and flies into the air. He avoids the attacks, recalling how often he experienced flying by sharing senses with Noah. Yoojin admits how his anger makes his head fuzzy, but it actually helps him deal with the flying. Yoojin once more unleashes electricity and releases it on the dragons while flying above them. The space is filled with the screech of dragons in pain. Yoojin applied the effects of his veteran F-ranker title and the Rao Cheetah's Bane skill. This doubled his attacks, and it is doubled once more for fighting against dragons of venomous curse type. Applying all skills he knows, there's no doubt our MC is OP in this space that relies on the use of imagination. The four-eyed dude is shocked by the overwhelming power that Yoojin is releasing. Losing focus, the enemy's foot gets trapped in ice. Yoojin used Yurim's skills, the Frosty Sigh and the Shadowless Day. Deeming it not enough, Yoojin transforms his hands into a dragon's and directly hits his enemy with it. The four-eyed dude retaliates with a swipe of his own dragon hand. The attack hits Yoojin's side, making him leap away. The enemy mocks him for being an F-ranker, but he stops as he sees Yoojin's next actions. Yoojin remembers his brother's power and skills, which were transferred to him before because of Final Thanks. Using this memory, Yoojin uses his brother's skill, Black Blood Flames, transforming his blood into a spear while the rest burns into flames. You're done. Four-eyed dude, you shouldn't have made our MC so angry. The enemy curses as Yoojin charges toward him. Yoojin claims that he is better when it comes to skills and uses Final Thanks, once again doubling his attack. Having his attack doubled 3 times, Yoojin stabs his spear at his enemy, successfully bringing down the four-eyed dude with his attack. The enemy is both surprised and confused at what Yoojin has shown. Yoojin glares and points his spear at his enemy. Yoojin thanks him for teaching the method and announces that it is his turn to look at the four-eyed dude's memories. Foolish enemy of our MC, he obviously never learned of the saying less talk, less mistake. Yoojin promises himself and his brother's name that he will do anything to get him back, whatever that entails.